Okay, this is Terry Peterson. He was born on August 26, 1946. He served in the Vietnam era in Germany and was part of the Army branch. His highest rank was E5. This recording is taking place in Alto, Michigan, and I am his grandpa. And this interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. So, Terry, what was your childhood like?
My childhood was good. My parents were loving. My mother was loving. My father was good. And other than that, we lived in just a normal house in a normal area. We had lots of kids in the neighborhood, and things have changed since then. It's amazing how all the kids are gone now, and the neighborhood's just full of old people.
Did you have any siblings?
I had 7 siblings. There were 8 of us total, 4 boys and 4 girls.
Were you like the oldest?
I was the next to the youngest. At this time now, I have no brothers left. I'm the only surviving male in the family, but I have 3 sisters left.
What were you doing before you entered service?
I was working at a factory, in fact, Tassel Industries, just as a high-low driver in a factory.
Is there any other family members who served in the military?
My oldest brother was in the Korean War, and my father-in-law fought in World War II, and he had a lot of skirmishes in World War II.
How did you enter service? Were you drafted or were you enlisted?
Oh, I was definitely drafted.
How was like training camp? Like, what was like your experience from it?
It was, when I first went into boot camp, which was in Fort Knox, Kentucky, it was tough because I wasn't in shape. And it was amazing how in 6 weeks' time you can be out of shape so bad that you can hardly run or do anything. And at the end of 6 weeks, you are physically fit. You can do most anything required of you.
Did you get any like specialized training?
Yes, from Fort Knox, I went to Aberdeen, Maryland, which was a turret mechanic school, which I specialized in turret mechanics, which is the hydraulics part of the moving turret on a tank and other vehicles. But once I got to Germany, though, then I went to a small arms school, which was in Murnau, Germany, and also to tank mechanic school. So I had my MOSs were varied. I had 3 different MOSs.
What was life in the military like? Like, what was the food or the social life or physical regimen?
Social life was very limited, but food, actually, I can't complain. Fort Knox wasn't too bad, but when I went to Aberdeen, Maryland, it was actually great. We had good food, and we didn't have any KP in there, so they had cooks that done all the work for us, people that took care of all the dishes and stuff, so there was no KP for the students at the class. And I have no complaints about Aberdeen, Maryland. When I got to Germany, we still had no KP in our troop. I was in the headquarters platoon of K Troop in the 3rd Armored Cavalry Division. And so we were exempt from any KP or anything like that. So in those senses, we had it pretty made.
So where did you serve?
Kaiserslautern, Germany.
What was like the trip? How'd you get there?
Oh, I flew. We flew in a, actually, we flew in a Air Force cargo jet. And they had seats on the side with probably maybe, I don't know, 12 to 18 passengers is all that came over on it. But in the back, there were Jeeps tied down along right behind us. So kind of a goofy flight. But no, we had a big storm on the way over there. It was really bad, and everybody seemed to be scared. But pilot come back and said, "Don't worry about it. Just typical flight, no big thing." And we landed in Frankfurt, Germany.
What duties did you serve in Germany?
I was basically a mechanic, turret mechanic, and then I had schooling so I could help the actual tank mechanics and stuff when they were busy or had major problems. And then I was in charge of the small arms room in the barracks. So anytime any small arms went out or came back in, it had to go through me.
Did you have like any emotions relating to combat, just as like witnessing casualties or destruction?
Well, we were in the armored cavalry, and our actual job was we were like the first responders. If anything had ever happened on the East and West Germany wall, we were supposedly going to be the first ones there. We had these, what they called ORTs, quite often, which is an organized readiness test. And alarms would go off in the room, and you'd have to jump up in the middle of the night and go down, and I would head down to the arms room and open up the arms room. So everyone that came through could pick up their weapons. Everyone had their own assigned weapons. And after that, they all get in their own vehicles in the motor pool. And sometimes we just sit and wait, and they would call it off. And so everyone would come back into the barracks, and I'd be up later than everyone else because I'd have to check all the weapons back in and make sure that, they were all in good shape and keep track of them. And once in a while, somebody take their weapon back to their room and forget about it. So then I have to go track them down and find the weapon and bring it back. So they had to all be 100% back in there and all the ammunition and everything before I could go to bed at night. Sometimes, though, we would do our organized readiness test, get in the motor pool, get in our vehicles, and then they'd call us out. And we'd go to some big place out in the middle of the woods or some hidden area or something and just sit there. And that would be, sometimes a day, sometimes a couple of days. And then we'd turn around and come back. And the whole reasoning was timing. They were timing to see how fast we could respond in a real emergency. That's the reason of the tests were constant, and it was response time. We had to keep it at a certain response time, see how fast we could get out if there was an actual emergency, because that was our job. Was supposed to be the first responders if something actually happened. The cavalry back in the olden days were the horses. Well, I was in the armored cavalry, which was mechanized, which means your tanks and jeeps and all your other vehicles that go along with that would all go out, and that was our duty.
Did you form any friendships while you were in service?
I had many friends when I was in service, yes. In fact, I've seen a few of them, within the last few years after I got out of service, but I've kind of lost contact with all of them since then.
Oh, so do you ever stay in touch with them?
Not anymore, no. I did for probably 15 years after I got out of service, 20 years possibly. In fact, when my wife and I were married, we went down to Missouri and stayed with a guy that we got married to a gal in Germany, and they named our first kid after me. It was a daughter, but they named her Terry.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
It was tough back then because all there was letter writing, and that was it. So you could write a letter, but it was time it got home, time the answer came back, it was basically a week's time. They didn't have internet back then, and phone calls were so outrageously expensive. The only time I ever made a phone call was when my grandfather died. Or my grandfather, so I called and talked to my mother. at that time. That was the only phone call I'd made, and they were horribly expensive.
Like how much?
I don't remember, but it was like a per minute charge was ridiculous. You had to make it quick, and
Mm. Did you ever get any like communication from your loved ones back at home?
it was all letters. Yeah, yeah, I did. My sister wrote me almost daily. I give her a lot of credit for that. And my mother wrote me almost daily. But every now and then I'd get, correspondence from a brother or another sister or something like that.
Did you have like any off-duty pursuits?
Pursuits?
Yeah.
No, we had a movie theater just down the street from us, which we used to go pretty often, and that was basically it. We didn't do a whole lot. We stayed in the barracks a lot and played a lot of cards and stuff like that in the evening. Watched the, American military TV channel.
So basically, how were you like a really good mechanic? Tank mechanic?
I would like to think so. Yeah. Yes, I did a lot of it. We, in fact, we had a couple of tank commanders that myself and James Blunt, a good friend of mine, were the only two that they would allow on their tanks. They wouldn't allow anyone else to touch them.
How tough were those tanks?
How tough were they?
Yeah, like
Very
just
tough.
give some description on them.
Well, they're 54 tons. They were diesel powered, and it took a lot to stop them. You could not hardly stop them. M60A1s.
Oh, so basically the tanks were really good, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Yeah. Like, how powerful were they? Like, if you drove in them, like, how strong were they?
Powerful, I don't know. They were huge, huge engines in them. But there were 12-cylinder diesel engines in them. And basically nothing could stop them. You could run over trees. You could do most anything you wanted. I mean, reasonably sized tree. 4 or 5 inch tree, you could just run right over them and never know it. They could, if you ever wanted to, I mean, they could run over cars. They could do anything.
What were, like, the duties of the tanks? Like, did they do, like, things other than, like, combat against enemies?
Well, they would. They were available to do that. We never had the, opportunity or the reason to do that. But we go to fire ranges and firing ranges all the time and stuff, and check them out and fire rounds out of them. And
Were you
105
like?
millimeters.
Did you ever like help other tanks when they were in trouble?
Oh, definitely. Yes. We when we go out on maneuvers and stuff, if a tank was down, we drove VTR, which is a vehicle tank recovery in military talks. It was a 16 horse gasoline engine in it. That was our headquarters in the fields. As the radio operators were in there, the mechanics were in there, all the important people were in there, and they would go out, and when a tank would break down on maneuvers, our job was to hook a tow bar on a tank and pull it back. We were a lot bigger than a tank. VTR weighed 54 tons, if I'm not mistaken, and but the track length was a lot larger, but it had a gasoline engine in it, and it burned 5 gallons a mile. So that's how much fuel it took to push that thing. But that had a 4-inch thick blade on the front that you could drop almost to the ground and just mow over anything. You could run right over a basement of a house or anything and go in and out and never slow it down, never stop it.
Where were you when the war ended?
Oh boy, when the Vietnam War ended, I believe I was back home.
Yeah. So, what was your reaction when you could finally go home?
It, it was exciting to go home, you know. Earlier, I was homesick and stuff like that, but then you get in a routine of being used to what you're doing all the time, and you don't really think a whole lot about it until the last. Everyone would call themselves short when they get down to like 30 days left in the military or something. Then they'd get a month calendar out and start scratching off the days when it come down. So the closer you got to that time, the more exciting it became. In fact, I got out a few days early, which surprised me because at that time of year, which was in December, they were sending military planes back with troops on, but any commercial airlines that were open, they would fill in with military personnel and send them back to the United States also. I came back to Fort Dix, but I came back on a commercial jet with all kinds of other passengers on it.
Did you get any reception by family and community?
Not until I got to Grand Rapids. I came back to Fort Dix, and I was in Fort Dix to get processed out of the military, and I was there for 4 or 5 days. And then I flew back to Michigan, and my mother picked me up. My mother and my sister picked me up when I got home.
And when did you get home?
December of 1968. I was a 2 years draft. In January of 1967, I went in. December 23rd or something, just before Christmas. In fact, I got an early out because of Christmas. So it was basically a 2 year stint, but 10 days shorter.
Was being in service how did it readjust to civilian life? How did it change you?
Oh, it made me smarter, made me more respectful. I think you can be a mouthy teenager, but once you get in there, you find out, you can't be cocky anymore. You can't be mouthy. You're not as tough as you thought you were. And all of a sudden, the rules and restrictions are really good because they were really tight on restrictions. So you got a whole different meaning on what life is all about, and respect for people and respect for authority. So that's a good thing. I didn't like it when I went in, but I learned to like it, realizing that it was a good thing.
Did you get in contact with fellow veterans over the years, or get a membership in veteran organizations?
No, I haven't. Like I say, I kept in contact for a few years with a few friends I had in the military, but other than that, no.
So what happened after you came home? What was your job? What was your life like after it?
After that, I got an apprenticeship in fire protection, and that's the job I took for the rest of my life until I retired.
Yeah. How exactly did it affect your life? Being in Vietnam. In Germany.
The military?
The military.
Like I say, I think it gave me more respect for, being on time, being prompt, and respect for people, respect for authority. It just makes a better person of you. It really does.
Is there any life lessons learned from being in the military?
Life lessons. Probably just those. Learning, other than learning, being in Germany and seeing the difference in the East and West, it's remarkable. When we were in Berlin, that was our job, was to travel. Anytime a troop like Berlin, they were allowed 30-day leave, but we went in and covered for them. And when we went to their base in Berlin, we took all of our own equipment. We went on a electric train to a certain point, and then from that point, we ended up with a steam locomotive. We have to go through East Germany to get to West Berlin, a section of it. You have West Germany, and Berlin, the town of Berlin is actually in East Germany. It's a divided city. So we had to go through a portion of East Berlin to get to East Germany to get to West Berlin. And when we got there, the difference at night, as far as watching West Germans on a weekend evening, the town was all still lit up and people were just having a good time. And East Germany was basically black. East Berlin was basically black. It almost like they had a curfew. I don't know if they did or not, but it was almost like they couldn't stay up, or maybe they didn't have electricity for that long. I don't know.
While you were in Berlin, did you do any specific duties?
Yes, they had the fence in Berlin, which was all covered with razor wire and stuff, and on both sides it had minefields on the East German side, and my job was they had guards that walked the wall, walked the fence, and then I rode in a Jeep along with another guy with weapons, and we drove, I don't know, I had like a 2-mile stretch or something, that we go down, we turn around and come back, and just keep track of the guards and keep track of the fence in front of us the whole time. So that was my duty when I was over there, other than keeping track if anything happened in there, vehicles or anything, then they'd have to be repaired, and I was there to do that.
Can you remember your reflection on why you wanted to join the military in the first place?
I didn't want to join the military in the first place. I had no desire to join the military.
Oh, so they required
I was drafted, and that was, I didn't want to, not go in the military because I was drafted, and like my dad said, if your country calls, you have to go. So that was the answer. I went.
When you were drafted, were you in the place you were kind of hoping, or really you would just take whatever you were given?
What, job?
Basically the position you would serve in the military.
No, you go in and you go through all these tests, and you go through IQ tests, and that kind of sets the pace on what you're going to do. Certain people get sent into certain situations, and others get into other categories, and then you get further testing in some things. And then when I went in for testing, they say, okay, would you like to do this? Would you like to do that? I scored high in the mechanical part of the testing. And so then after you start going to school for certain things, then they come in and ask you, would you like to be a pilot? So I'll say, well, what's pilot require? So well, you have to re-enlist for 4 more years. Okay. No. 2 years is it. That's all, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and that's all I want, And actually, looking back, wanting to be a pilot would have been maybe a great job, because then you come out of the military and go into a commercial airlines and become a pilot, It's what a big majority of the pilots in the military, commercial airlines are all ex-military pilots. But no, I wanted my 2 years and I wanted out.
Yeah. Is there any advice to future veterans you like to give out?
Future veterans or future military?
Yes.
Any military. No, the military is a good thing. I didn't like it when I went in because I think I didn't need it, didn't want it. But in the end, it's a good experience. It really does. It teaches you a lot of life lessons, and it gets you out and about and meeting different people and different ways of life, and it's a really good experience.
Alright, well, thank you for allowing me to interview you, and I'd like to thank you for being a part of our military and serving our country. Thank you.
Thank you.